You have probably seen videos on the internet. Usually below the video here, there is something like a timeline. And there's some kind of marker here, for example, a circle or a square that is moving to the right. So I'm going to write here video. So the movie starts here. This is the start. And then this circle is moving to the right, and the end is on the opposite side. And during the playback of the video, there are here different scenes. I would like to show you how we can create something similar in processing. Something that has a start and end, and it has different scenes in between. So we could say that we're going to have some intro here, then some main action, and finally the credits, for example. So during the intro, we could show maybe the name of the program in the screen and maybe instructions. Then we see the program running for a while. And at the end, we see the credits, maybe the date and who is the author. Of course, you could create much more than 3 scenes, but 3 should be enough to give you an idea of how to achieve this. So let's assume here that this is going to be our program. And we are going to show for 2 seconds some introduction. Then for 10 seconds, we will show the program running. And finally, we will show some credits for 5 seconds. So let's think when these events are happening. This is going to be 0. This is the beginning. The time is 0. This is 2 seconds here. The next marker here is at 12. Because if we want to run this scene for 10 seconds and we started at 2, then the end of this scene is at 12 seconds. And finally here, this is going to be 17 because 12 plus 5 is 17. So we will use these numbers here in our program. Now, how can we know how long our program has been running? Let's see that here in our program, we're going to be calling a function called millis, which tells us how many milliseconds has the program been running for. So I could type here print ln millis, and this will tell me if I run the program now. You can see that 1 second is 1000 milliseconds. So you have to multiply the numbers by 1000. If you want to count 10 seconds, then 10 times 1000 is 10,000. We can also store this value in a variable. We could say here int m is millis, and then we just print m. This will have the same effect, but now we have this time stored in a variable. We get exactly the same result here. Now, to make that our program shows different scenes over time, what we're going to do is call different functions. I can call this function scene1, which will be called at the beginning of the program. Then we will call scene2, which we will call during this period here for 10 seconds. Each time we call the draw function, we're going to be calling scene2. And finally, during these 5 seconds, we will be calling scene3. You can give these functions any name you want. I'm just going to be calling them scene 1, 2, and 3. So this is going to be like having 3 programs in one program. Until this episode, every time we created one effect, which we were showing during all the time while the program executed. But this time we're going to have 3 different effects. So this is going to be like 3 programs. For example, here you could have an orange background and a white circle moving around. And here we could have some lines on top of a purple background. And here we could be drawing some text on the screen, for example. So it's basically like having 3 programs that run in a sequence. Let's see now how we can use this variable, this m, or this value that millis is returning, to decide which of the 3 scenes we want to call. And for that, we're going to be using an if statement. Let's have a look here in the reference, and let's search for if, which is down here. Actually, let's take a look at else. And here we see the full version of the if statement. Sometimes we have been typing something like that, where we have just an if, a condition. For example, if I is less than 35, then draw a line. And that's it. In some other cases, we added here an else statement. So that means that always one of these 2 lines is going to be executing. If I is less than 35, it will execute the first line. In every other case, it's going to be executing the second line. This is useful for when you have two cases. But in our program here, we're going to have at least 3 different cases. We will be checking if the time is between 0 and 2, then we will call scene 1. We will also check if the time is between 2 and 12. In that case, we will be calling scene 2. If the time is between 12 and 17, we will call scene 3. And we could say that if the time is greater than 17, then we can just stop the program. So we have several cases. This kind of if statement is not enough. So we have to do something like what we have down here. In this example down here, you have 3 options, and one of the 3 options is going to execute. Maybe this line here, this one, or this one. So what it's doing is it's checking if I is less than 35, then it executes this line. If this is not true, then it's using else if. That means that if the first condition is not true, then check something else. Then check if this other condition is true. So if I was not less than 35, but it is less than 65, that means that I can be between 35 and 65. In that case, execute this line here. And finally, if every previous condition was false, so I is not less than 35, I is not less than 65, in that case, execute this final line here. So here we have 3 options. We're going to have actually 4. And instead of using I, we're going to be using our m variable, which is measuring time. So let's go back here to our program and let's write such a statement here. Let's say that if m is less than 2, and actually remember, if we are counting seconds, but m is in milliseconds, we have to type here 2000. This means 2 seconds. So if m is less than 2000, here we will call scene 1. If that doesn't happen, then we're going to type here else if m is less than 12,000. In that case, we will call scene 2. Now we write the next case. So else if m is less than 17,000. In that case, execute scene 3. And otherwise, if every previous case was false, then we can say no loop, and then the movie will stop completely. So you can chain these else if statements as long as you want. So you're not limited to 3 scenes. You could have as many as you want. They just have to be in order. That's important, that the numbers are increasing. So this is 2000, 12,000 is greater than 2000 here, and 17,000 is greater than the previous one. If you mess up the order, then you would get unexpected results. What's missing now in this program is to create these 3 scenes. We have to declare them here. Void scene 1, void scene 2, and void scene 3. So just as an example, let's make something very simple. We can draw a circle, a square, and lines on each of these scenes. So let's make here an ellipse, random width, random height, and 100, 100, for example. Here, let's do the same with a rectangle, random width, random height, 100, 100. And finally here, let's draw a line. So I'm going to say int x is random width, or actually float, and then a line between x0, x height. So now we can already run this program and see the 3 scenes. First, we're going to be drawing circles, then rectangles, then lines. I wrote this wrong, height. So there are circles for 2 seconds. Now we have rectangles for 10 seconds. And finally, we should have some lines at the end. There are our lines. And now the program is over. Now you know how you can build your own story. You can have different scenes. For example, you could have a dialogue. So you could display different texts like different maybe characters speaking and moving around and different action taking place. So you can build your own little movie this way.